All right. Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday, morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are joining us from in the world. We are so happy to see you back for another fabulous Power to Fly Chat and Learn event. Now, before we dive in and get our session going today, I just want to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items, kind of important, especially if either this is your first event with Power to Fly. If so, welcome. We're so happy to see you. Or if you haven't been on a Chat and Learn with us in a while, this will kind of give you the lay of the land. So participation is key here. These events are all about you. They're about our community members, our attendees, and we want to make sure that you get the most out of today's event. So you are more than welcome, highly encouraged if you would like, to turn your cameras on, share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. Don't worry, there is no need to be Instagram perfect. I think I'm on day 4 of dry shampoo. So please understand that whether you are working from an ironing board in your closet or a boardroom in a corner office, we do not care. We want to see y'all here. Messy buns, furry coworkers, little baby supervisors that are making sure that you, I don't know, count your Cheerios faster or something. We cannot wait to see all of that. So please feel free to join us as you are. Now, today's session is being recorded. So what that means for all of you is that you get to kick back and relax. You don't have to take notes. You don't have to worry about if you missed, list item 3 of 5. You don't have to worry about maybe not catching a resource that someone mentions. You can always go back and review this stuff later. And let's say that, Roberta or Kenzi says something today that is just mind-blowing and you cannot wait to share it with someone. You can do that in a couple different ways. So we are live streaming to YouTube as well as recording. Our video is going to be posted on our YouTube channel, usually within about 5 to 15 minutes of the end of the live stream. And our video will also end up on the Power to Fly website later. I think it usually goes like later today or early tomorrow. Now, if you want to share this stuff or share this content with somebody, please feel free to do so. You can always head over to the YouTube channel to check out the recording after. You are welcome to take photos or video as we go today. Share it out to your social network. Let your friends, people in your social circle know that you are learning with Power to Fly. We would love to share, retweet, repost anything that y'all tag us in. We are at Power to Fly on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can always check us out on those various social platforms. We share all kinds of great stuff, y'all. Resources, links to events like this, blog posts, all kinds of cool stuff. So definitely check us out there. Now, if you have any kind of privacy concerns today, just understand that as long as you don't come off mute, you will not show up on the live stream or the recording for today, no matter what. So if you do want to participate, send all those questions, any comments you have for the speakers, anything else into that group chat in Zoom. I will be there keeping track of everything and trying to make sure that y'all have the best possible virtual experience. So if you want to dive in deeper on something that one of the panelists said, or if you want to, if you wrote in a question and you're not sure if we're going to get to it in time or not, please feel free to let me know in the chat. I really want to know what y'all want to get out of today's session. Now, our 2 guests today are here on behalf of Stack Overflow. I'm going to be sharing the link to their company page on Power to Fly here in just a moment. But one thing I wanted to highlight for y'all is that if you go to Stack Overflow's company page using the link I'm going to send you, you will see a page that looks very much like what you see in front of you now. Now, what that is that's going to be their company page. You can check out, learn more about the company, check out things like benefits, what the company culture is like. You can also take a look at open roles. Obviously, those are the roles that Stack Overflow has posted. You can search right from that page. And if you are, actively seeking and you're interested in Stack Overflow, but don't see a role that really fits you yet, at the top right-hand corner of that page is going to be a big pink button that says follow. If you click that, it's going to put you on Stack Overflow's follow list or follow network. Effectively, what it does is it works like your friend at Stack Overflow. It's going to let them know that you are interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. And we are going to keep you posted when they have new roles up. So really awesome way to make sure that not only do great companies like Stack Overflow stay on your radar, but you stay on their radar too. So absolutely take advantage of that feature within Power to Fly. Now, I'm really excited to introduce you to today's speakers. So first up, we have Kenzi Tobyne. So Kenzi is here as the manager of Customer Success at Stack Overflow for the SMB and Enterprise Teams business unit. Now, Kenzi has over 9 years of experience in sales, partnerships, as well as customer success. Now, she's primarily responsible for building and monitoring the customer success strategy across SMB and enterprise market segments. Prior to Stack Overflow, Kenzi excelled as a competitive junior Olympic gymnast for 18 years. Kenzi, mad respect to the gymnast life. I had a couple friends that did it through high school and into college, and that is dedication. That is a lifestyle. So that is so awesome, and we're so happy to have you here. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your bio, or you want people to know about you before we dive into questions today?
I'm stoked to be here. The one thing that I think is relevant for the conversation around just burnout and work from home in general is I'm actually a boomerang to Stack Overflow. So I was at Stack Overflow from 2015 to 2020, and I left on my own accord because I was burnt out, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But I came back in February of this year due to the culture that we have at Stack Overflow. So just a little tidbit that I think is relevant to the conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to hear from a good boomerang story. Those are always really interesting because the reasons people leave and the reasons they come back are fascinating, but even more so, it's how the team responds and the reasons why people return back to those amazing companies or amazing teams they've worked with. So thank you for sharing that, Kenzi. Joining Kenzi is going to be Roberta Arcoverde. Now, Roberta is a director of engineering at Stack Overflow. She's also a public speaker as well as a podcaster. Now, Roberta holds a master's in computer science and has over 17 years of professional experience as a software developer. She's been awarded Microsoft MVP status as well as the Allura Star for her contributions to the software engineering community in Latin America. Roberta, we are so happy to have you today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
Thank you. No, I'm also stoked, like Kenzi, my colleague and friend. This is amazing. Thank you for having us. I'm honored. And I guess working from home has been what I've been doing for the past 9 years. So hopefully there will be some fun tips and tricks that help everybody else navigate this new modus operandi of working after the pandemics.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about before we dive into our questions today are some of the main takeaways you can expect to get from today's session. Now, we identified these both by talking in conversations with Kenzi and Roberta prior to today's session, but it's also decided based on the questions that you all submitted when you registered today. So if you have questions and you're not sure if we're going to get to the one that you submitted, let us know. We want to know these things. If you have questions and want to expand on something somebody's talking about, let us know. You took the time out of your day to be here with us live, to meet with the Stack Overflow team. So we want to make absolutely sure that you are, getting what you came to get out of today's event. So we're going to talk about some tips and tricks to help you establish that healthy work-life balance. We're going to discuss the importance of creating your own routine to help support that, as well as how to communicate any struggles you might have to your team or to your manager. Now, I'm really excited to dive in. So before we hit with our first question, before we kind of dive in deeper, I want to talk about something that a lot of people were asking when it comes to starting off like their work from home journey. Now, Roberta, you shared that you've been work at home for 9 years. Kenzi, how about you? How long have you been working out or working remotely?
Yeah, I went remote in the fall of 2018. So almost about a year and a half prior to the pandemic hitting.
Yeah, it is a very different feeling getting going remote during the pandemic versus prior. I'm sure there's many stories like this. I've been remote for 3.5 years, but my husband went remote during the pandemic, and love him. Man is not suited for it. He's got to be in the office. He's got to be tethered to a desk. He's got to have coworkers around him. So I'm really excited to talk about ways that maybe people who are more used to that setting can either get better at working remote, learn to love it, or just make it work for them in every way that they might have to do it if you are maybe in a hybrid environment. So what are, in your opinion, what do you think are the best ways to start building those boundaries when you can no longer differentiate your work time from your personal time? I have fallen prey to this. Absolutely. I don't think I'm alone. Roberta, how do you handle this? How do you maintain a boundary so that you're not constantly feeling like you're at work?
Yeah, that's a very good question because it's two things that I struggled with a lot when I started working from home. One is knowing when to start working and then knowing when to stop working because it all becomes a single thing. For me, I was always privileged to have a dedicated space in my house that I can use for work. So this is my office and I do nothing in it but work. So that physical boundary creates a natural limitation for me not to go over hours if needed. And also to understand when I'm out that door, I know that I'm in the context of being home and with my family and taking care of house chores. And when I'm within the office, that's when I know I need to be focused on work. I have some physical tricks that help my brain get into the right mood. In my case, that's always been turning on the light. When I come into the office and regardless of how bright it is, I'm based in Brazil, so it's very shiny and bright today. But regardless, I always turn on my light and that's how I know I'm in work mode. And if I am finished, I'm done for the day, I just turn it back off. And the other thing that I would highly advise is to block off times on your calendar for the things that you need to do, like go out for lunch, or if you need to go out at a certain time, like 5 p.m. or so, create an event on your calendar to indicate so, because then you are relying on technology to let you know, hey, time to go, you're done.
I love that. I think that is so, so great. I did the same. I used to have a boxing class I'd go to 2 days a week, and I always had it at 6. So that way, no matter what, even if I knew there was work to be done again, like kind of when I came back afterwards, I had that break. I knew like, I have to go. I already paid for the class. I got my money in it. So I have to go to, kind of take that physical step outside of, kind of your office space. Kenzi, how about you?
It's funny when we were doing the prep for this, Roberta and I realized that we have a lot of the same tendencies. And I don't know if that's because we both went remote prior to the pandemic or maybe our personalities are just similar, but I also have specific cues. So turning the light on, I have a specific light right above me, and then I have a light that's right in front of me. And I have those 2 specific lights on. Also scents. So I have a diffuser that sits on my desk. And in the evening time, like when I'm wrapping up for work, I'll put lavender in there in the afternoon to help me kind of wrap up my day. But in the morning, I'll put like lemongrass or I can't remember the other one. Lemongrass is typically the one that I go for. But having scents is really helpful. I'm also a huge proponent of my morning routine, and I'll dig into that a little bit more. I think some of the later questions asked specifically about creating routine and battling with some mental health and like neurodiversity issues. But I think that when it comes to boundaries, knowing when to say no and how powerful that the word no is incredibly important, especially as a woman. I get nervous a lot of the time saying no because that opportunity might not be there again. And I realize that protecting my peace and protecting my time is how I'm able to move forward within my career and also, hit my personal goals. And so I think the power of saying no and also having a few physical cues can definitely help create some more boundaries.
Yes, I'm loving the scent thing. I honestly never would have thought of that, but like now I'm realizing like, oh, okay, that'd be super great. So I've got, you're giving me a list of
I was gonna say no free ads, but like the Vitruvi the aroma diffuser, highly recommend. It is the best thing ever. And it looks really nice too. It's very aesthetic.
Yeah. During the winter, I have we don't wear shoes in the house, but I have a pair of house slippers, and I always make sure that like I have shoes on when I'm working. I remember being told like if you were interviewing from home, that was a good way to kind of put yourself in that work mode. Yes.
So I was just gonna say I have ADHD, and I have to have shoes on if I'm doing a project. That is something that I've learned about myself. So for work, I have to put my shoes on. Sometimes I'll put heels on if I have a presentation. I know that sounds crazy, but getting ready for the day is, you know, really important to really separate that that time when it's kind of blurred.
Yeah. Oh, totally agree. All right, let's talk a little bit about you know, how you maintain that that balance when your calendar is overloaded. I think that there are a ton of people experiencing this of, you know, not only it was one thing when it was meetings that could have been an email. I feel like it kind of reaches another level of like, really, what are we doing when it's a Zoom meeting that could have been an email? So if you are, you know, you're looking at a packed schedule, but you are still trying to protect that work-life balance for yourself or that work-life integration. What have you done in the past when you've been faced with a huge workload? Roberta, how do you handle this when your calendar is just back to back?
Well, one thing that I learned, Meg, is that if I don't do anything, my calendar will naturally just fill up. You know, any blank spaces will be taken eventually. So we need to prepare up front, right? Today is Tuesday. I'm already looking at my calendar next week, and I'm already blocking some time for focused work, or if I do require some time for myself, then I block it right now. I don't wait until somebody else will find those times. But of course, I'm a manager, and the management work is naturally interruption based. So I need to be available to firefight and help my team and talk to my colleagues on short notice as well. So even though you can block time for focused work, it's also important to make sure that you make yourself available and flexible. The other thing that I have been experimenting with recently is, instead of setting up meetings that take 30 or 60 minutes, make it 25 and 55. You know, those 5 extra minutes between 2 calls, they're super important for you to be able to breathe and get some water or get some coffee. And usually meetings will take the time that you allocate to it. So if I allocate 30 minutes, people will talk for 30 minutes. If I allocate 25, they will make it work for 25 too, and I'll get those 5 minutes back for free.
I love that. I really like that approach. I've also been on, you know, situations where I go between like 3 events in a day. And you're right, having that time to even just like, okay, now we're back at it. Like having that time and not really, you know, kind of panicking about like, nope, I got to switch over to the next Zoom and I can't be late because, you know, otherwise they don't know I'm coming, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that's really, really great. There's a lot of people in the chat that are loving your book 5 minutes shorter advice. Kenzi, how about you? What do you do when you're staring at just gridlocked calendar?
Yeah, similar to Roberta, some of those meetings, they're not going to be elective, right? Being in management, you need to make sure that your reps are taken care of, especially my team is customer facing. So that can escalate very quickly in terms of, okay, let's just add Kenzi to all of these customer calls. If I have 8 reps, that it escalates pretty quickly. So with that, I think it's really important to have routine and to own your calendar. So the ways in which I do that, if I walk into, yesterday was actually a really good example. I was out of the office at QBR's last week on Thursday and traveling on Friday. So I effectively lost 2 days, which anyone that's in management or a customer facing role knows that's terrifying. And so walking in on Monday, I had 17 meetings on my calendar yesterday. All back to back. And so what I did is I looked at it, and I actually have a sticky note. I'm a big fan of sticky notes, but I have a sticky note on my computer, and it's the 3 buckets that are the most important parts of my job. And I recommend that anybody distills their job. There you go, Roberta. Distills their job down to this. You can think of it as you're hired, fired, and promoted. What did I get hired to do? What action is going to get me fired? So let's avoid that. And what kind of activities can I do that's going to get me promoted? And start thinking about it in that way. And you're going to be able to create your buckets. So for me personally, my buckets are revenue, recruiting, and development. If a meeting does not fit into one of those buckets, I don't need to be there, is where I'm at when I am super stressed out, and I need to control my calendar. And that's the other thing, is your calendar should never run you. You should always be running your calendar, and you should always be running the process of running your team. And so taking ownership in that, and going back to my original point of knowing when to say no, and realizing that that makes you a much more powerful employee, and it allows you to advocate for your own career growth, and understanding that perspective is really helpful and important. The last tip that I will say, if you do manage people, I manage people in multiple different time zones, similar to Roberta. And so just knowing that going into your day and understanding which days are, which time periods have those overlapping internal meetings that they're not elective, I'm not going to be able to move them. And then accommodating around that and blocking off your calendar a couple of weeks in advance with focus time for blocks of time, because we need that time to rest and recharge, so that we don't get burnt out. So I hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, I like that. Would you mind expanding a little bit on what you said about, running your calendar and not letting your calendar run you? Because I think this is, something that I run into a lot where, I have to go to a bunch of meetings. I'm not the one that calls the meeting, so I can't pick, I can't sit there and say like, oh yeah, I really want to front end load my day so that everything's done in the morning. What do you think what does it mean to you to run your calendar versus having your calendar run you?
So if it is a meeting that I'm not running and I am a participant in, joining the meeting and asking what the objective of the meeting is. You'd be shocked a lot of the times when you join an internal meeting specifically and you ask what the objective of the meeting is. The person that called it may not know what the objective of the meeting is. And so getting in the habit of asking that, not to be culturally defensive by any means, but more to allude to the fact that I recognize my time is valuable. Everybody else that is in this meeting as well, their time is valuable. So we need to make sure to have an objective of the meeting, or we can probably just handle it over email, to your point. And so making sure that we have a presence within your organization to know that there needs to be an objective for a meeting starts to create that type of environment where you can control your calendar a little bit more. Does that help expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really helpful. Okay, so Roberta, I want to go back to you for this question to start. A lot of people wrote in about, kind of unlearning bad habits, or, there's a lot of people who, don't have that boundary between their work day and their home life. There's a lot of people that started out with this, not really thinking it was going to be something that we might still be doing 2+ years down the road. So what do you recommend for people that need to kind of unlearn some of these unhealthy habits when it comes to that work-life boundaries?
A lot of it is what me and Kenzi touched base on in terms of the physical cues. At least that's what worked for me, right? I'm not an expert in reprogramming the brain. I do computers only, but when I started working from home, this was something that I personally have struggled with a lot, right? Usually I would start working early, and then all of a sudden it's 5 p.m. I haven't eaten anything, and then I have an idea 11 p.m. at night, and I'm like, I can't let go. The computer is right there, so it's so easy to just pop it open and do whatever it is. So for me, it was a process. It took me around, 6 to 8 months to get to a state where I was comfortable working from home after a lifetime of working from offices, right? And having those physical cues was what helped me the most at the time. Of course, you also need to sometimes educate your family. Every time that I visit my parents, for example, they don't understand that even though I'm sitting on my room, I'm not available for talking to them every time. I might be in meetings, I might be busy. So there's a little bit of making sure that the people around you, if you do have people around you, also understand those boundaries as well as you do. But it comes down to ensuring that you have an organized agenda for what is it that you want to do for the day, what is it that we need to accomplish, what are the things that you need to finish. And if it turns out that it's 5 p.m. and you need to wrap up and you haven't finished, that also should be okay, right? Like, it's trying to crunch it throughout the day is a very easy and short path to burning out, as Kenzi knows too well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, right? Is that, it's going to take time to get, to kind of get your routine figured out. And part of, at least for me, part of the routine aspect was kind of mimicking my workday, right? Kenzi, I know you had wanted to touch on this as well, but that idea of kind of like having a commute, when I first started working remotely, I kind of faked a commute. I used to have to drive at minimum 30 minutes to get to work. And so I would get up in the morning, I would come downstairs, make myself a cup of coffee or something. I might take the dog for a walk, but no matter what I did, I had a half hour blocked out that I did something. And it generally involved going outside, kind of help get that sunlight, set our circadian rhythms up, better. But yeah, like that was something that like really mattered to me. And it wasn't until like 6 or 8 months later that I realized, okay, I faked a morning commute. Why am I not faking an afternoon commute? I used to come home. I would have that time to sort of like kind of de-stress, like remove myself from the day and prepare for my evening, getting to spend time with my dogs or my husband or my friends. So yeah, I loved doing that, but it was definitely weird for a while. Kenzi, what does your morning or what does your routine look like when you we're talking about sharing that with us?
Yeah, I have and I'm not saying that anyone needs to be this crazy with their morning routine. I'm a Virgo, so I take everything to the extreme. But I'm one of those people that wakes up at 4 a.m. And I have a very specific morning routine. The reason for that, though, is I realize on the days that I do it versus the days I don't, there's not days that I don't do it anymore, but my anxiety is higher. I feel more depressed at the end of the day, and my ADHD symptoms go crazy. So some of those things that are part of my morning routine, like I said, I suffer from depression, so I have to get outside. I have to. Sunlight is incredible, especially if I'm waking up and I'm not, feeling like doing it that day. I know that I have to get my body moving. Motion is lotion. I have all these like one-off sayings that you probably heard like 4 of them already. Motion is lotion. Get your body moving. If you have a bad call, go block off 30 minutes on your calendar and go on a walk. Or go ground, which means you go outside in the grass, barefoot, and you stand in it, hippie style. I grew up in Colorado, so don't blame me, blame my mom. But those things are incredibly important. Meditating is also incredibly important. So grateful that I work for a company that gives us a free Calm membership. So Stack Overflow pays for our Calm membership. I use that thing every morning. And to your point, Meg, also to wind down in the evening. It's incredibly important to wind down. So those are some of the things that I specifically do. I also make sure to do my skincare routine. I do things to make myself whole. If I don't fill my cup, there's no way in heck that I'm going to be able to go and fill all 8 of my reps cups. At the end of the day, I'm going to be drained and I'm not going to be able to give to anybody, which is my favorite thing, is being able to give back. I just saw Kimberly say that she loves to journal as well, or they love to journal. Huge on journaling. I like to start at the beginning of my day and focus on who do I want to send love to today, and focus it on gratitude. What's a word that I want to embody today? And what's the kind of attitude that I want to have today? And also any professional development that I want to work on, and making sure that I make time for that. And then at the end of the day, I do a quick check-in before I go to bed to see how I did. So I know the question was originally about those boundaries, and we've talked about how you can protect your calendar and stuff like that. I've broken my job down into those 3 buckets of revenue, recruiting, and development, but I think it's also important, to Roberta's earlier point, to break down your day so that for me, I am in a customer facing role. So a lot of the times, if I'm not making a sale or someone on my team doesn't, close a renewal, what did we do that day? But I know I did a lot because I was running around for 9 hours. So it's incredibly important to set those mini goals that are part of your job that you can cross off at the end of the day so that you can feel whole and you can wrap up your day and you're not working until the midnight oil and burning the midnight oil in order to close a deal or whatever your one goal is. So hopefully that helps.
I absolutely love all of this. There's a ton of people saying that, they also, they journal or they use Headspace. I am so I also have ADHD as well as bipolar disorder. So the sunlight thing is absolutely key for me. And because I'm not good at meditating, y'all. Like, I don't know if you can guess this by looking at me. I am not good at being quiet and sitting still. So one of the things
that's why you need to do it, Meg.
So what I started doing, which seemed very like woo woo at first, but now I just kind of love it. I do a tarot card pull in the morning. Like, I literally just pull one. They're written incredibly vaguely. I picked a deck that had like pretty pictures, so it's more fun for me. But like something about having like the cards to kind of like mess around or play with, like that physical or tactile sensation. And then I pull a card, and that like kind of gives me something to think about for the day, even if it ends up being something that I think about in relation to someone else in my life or a relationship or something. It isn't always just about me. But it really does help me kind of look at my day with some kind of intention, which can feel really weird when you don't have a set work schedule like I do. I work freelance. So that works really well for me. Roberta, is there anything you wanted to add on this topic before we keep moving?
No, I love the routine that Kenzi described. Like, I do not wake up 4 a.m. in the morning, but I am a morning person, having said that. And I think that there's a lot about self-knowledge as well. And the more you find out about yourself and how your body works best, the more you can adapt the routine to it, right? Like, I found out after a couple of years of work that I do not function as well after lunch. So between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., my brain's kind of mushy, I'm sleepy, I'm tired, I don't have enough energy. So I try not to use this time for deep thinking or anything that requires my 100% focus or anything like that. And I try to upfront that kind of work in the mornings when I have a lot of energy, even though, Kenzi, I do not work 4 a.m. I didn't wake up 4 a.m. in the morning. That's really remarkable.
Yeah. 4 a.m. You're by yourself on that one.
Trust me, my team thinks I'm crazy. I will give a caveat that most of my team is in New York and London, and I sit in Arizona. So just a caveat. That is kind of by default, but I do prefer, like, I want to use it in my day.
Yeah, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I know as a child, I could not be rushed for anything. So I totally understand this idea of like, know yourself and know what you need to be in a good mood that day.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, most of the Roberta knows this. Most of our internal overlapping calls are on the Eastern time zone. So a lot of the calls that I'm on are, from 6 to 9 in the morning. So if I want to use into my day, I need to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success. That doesn't mean that I'm working until 5 or 6 in the evening. Things usually wrap up around 2 or 3. But I think it's important to time is just a construct, really. It is.
Oh, yeah. What is it? It's just time is a flat circle, I want to say. Yeah, that sounds about right.
The earth is flat. Let's just throw out all these
oh,
crazy theories
dear Lord.
on this webinar. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh. We got a really good question in the chat here. This person had asked, what are your must-have office supplies to have at home to help you be more efficient? Kenzi, you had started kind of ticking off some of the things that you have. I have like a real quick and dirty list, but I want to know, what that looks like for people who've been at this, longer than I have. Let's see, Kenzi, is there anything else you wanted to add to your list? I know you had your diffuser for the smell, you had shoes, so that you could kind of like be in that right mindset for work. What else is like your absolute core thing? If you have to pick up and move to a different place to work, what is something that you want to make sure you bring with?
My standing desk, though that might be a little difficult logistics wise. But my standing desk, if you've noticed on this call, we've been on this call for 34 minutes and I've stood and sat like 3 times probably. Again, I have ADHD. That's what happens. But with the standing desk, I will say, I have this fluid stance that Stack Overflow got for me, like in 2016. But anyways, you can stand on this and kind of surf on it. So this is incredible for if you have ADD or you have any kind of neurodivergence. So that is fantastic and really helpful for me. I would also say in the last year, I've become a huge fan of time blocking. So it's in there right now, but I have this cube that has 10-minute, 20-minute, and 30-minute intervals that I can select, and I can just kind of time block myself so that I'm just focusing, on one project or one item, and I can have that tactical cue. Physical cues are really important for me, if you haven't noticed.
As I sit here playing with my Play-Doh with my lap.
There you go. Exactly.
Right there with you.
But I would also say, and I know Meg, you commented on this when we were catching up right before, but making sure that your environment is somewhere that you want to spend time. I say this about the companies that y'all join as well. It's incredibly important if you're going to be doing something for at least 8 hours a day, but realistically 10, you might as well enjoy what you're doing. And I take that kind of advice over to my office space as well. So I have like a little reading corner back here. And when I'm in this corner, I am solely doing like professional development, reading, or like wrapping up my day. And then I have like my book corner over here. And then I have my windows. And so that's really important as well for me.
Roberta, what are your must-haves if something that you can't work without, if you needed to move to another room, you'd absolutely bring with?
I'm a person of simple habits, so a notebook always. Work with technology for almost 20 years now, but this is my preferred way of ticking off tasks.
Same. Yep. It feels more satisfying.
It does. It does. It's much better to Post-its and place them in places than in your computer. But I also I like music a lot, so I always have a musical instruments around me, because in between meetings, that's how I decompress a little bit. So I spend 5 minutes like on the violin or on the guitar or something like that. I used to have a keyboard over here, but it's now in my wife's office, who also plays. So that's usually what I go for when in between meetings, or if I have like 10 minutes and I need to take my brain elsewhere just to decompress and not to think of anything work related. Those are the things that I use for that. Oh, and also I'm always squishing something. I have something to squish.
I have like a whole tray full of little like fidget toys and things. Like they can't make noise, but anything that allows me to like kind of play with something in my hand, has like a weird sensation or weird feel to it. I love that. There's a ton of people also saying that they're Post-its people, or the handwritten notes are their whole thing. Truly, there's no button tap as satisfying as like crossing something off.
Yeah,
it feels good. It feels excellent. I love this. Val's saying that their husband has guitars near his desk. Val themselves has a crochet project. I also have, I'm lucky enough to have a dedicated desk or dedicated office set up. So I think that is, you're right. It's very important to make your office someplace that you actually want to be. So that way, the time that you spend in there, you're not constantly itching to go like sit in a comfier chair or, sit next to the bright light if you don't have any in your office. So I think that is wonderful. James is also chiming in. I have a few Legos and various things on my desk to fidget with. I also have guitars near my desk, and my music studio is in the next room. So I think that is wonderful. We did get a lot of questions on today's session from working parents, right? People that are trying to figure out how to work remotely with kids at home, especially when maybe you need a more flexible work schedule and your office isn't necessarily familiar with that or understanding. I don't have any kids. Roberta, do you have kids? Would you like to weigh in on this? How you've dealt with it?
No, we are actually expecting our first for December. So that's, yeah. So I want to hear about the tips and tricks for that too myself.
Yes.
So I guess
Kenzi, how about you? Do you have kids or anybody on your team that's got kids that you have to help them work with their schedules?
Yeah, so I do have several members of my team that have children. I do not have children yet, at least. I have fur babies, but I know for the purpose of this question that's not the point. And so what I would say is, from a manager's perspective, and I'm sure Roberta could probably weigh in as well, is transparency is key. And so I think always assuming positive intent is incredibly important when you're going into one of those conversations. But also being a parent, and I think that it really comes down to culturally where your organization is at. But that being said, there are things that you can do to advocate and empower yourself and to have those conversations and to get the support that you need. And I think that always comes with transparency. And so maybe you have to do kid pickup in the middle of the day. That's a situation with one of the reps on my team. As long as he communicates that to me and I know about that on a specific day, I'm totally fine, with them bowing out of that meeting. And as a manager, I move our team meeting that is typically over that time to a different time that works for everybody else on the team. And so I think it's important, if you come with transparency, you come with a solution to the conversation with your manager, it's a lot easier for your manager to have some kind of edge case or one-off approval. That being said, if there's multiple members of the team, maybe we don't schedule meetings during over this certain amount of time, or we can handle it asynchronously. There's a lot of alternatives that you can bring as an individual contributor to the conversation, so that it's not defensive and your manager can easily approve something and not be concerned about you not getting your work done or something like that. I think that's typically the fear that revolves around that type of conversation. And hopefully you all work in an environment where you're not micromanaged and you're empowered to do the best that you can in your role. But if you're not, then you should definitely speak up, because there are so many companies out there that do empower and support that type of environment, including Stack Overflow for hiring.
No, I absolutely love this. And I think you're right. It is huge to communicate because, I don't have kids. I also have fur babies. They are demanding, but not quite in the same way that actual children are. And that's one of the things that I really count on from people that I work with, is telling me what you need. Tell me if I set up a meeting for 5:30 because that's what fits my calendar and I don't know what your timeout, your schedule looks like push back if you need to. Hey, that's not a great time for me because I'm, fixing dinner, putting the kids to bed, whatever, but I could meet here or here. Would you be able to sync, outside of your working hours? I don't mind doing that because as a person without kids, I have a lot more flexibility in my schedule than working parents do. So, you never know what support you might be able to get, if you don't ask for it, or if you don't at least say hey, this is something that would work better for me. Roberta, there's also a ton of people in the chat wanting to congratulate you on your upcoming family expansion. I think that is absolutely wonderful. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of where you work. Okay, so we had somebody wrote in the chat wanting to know your thoughts about working at a co-working space or at a coffee shop. Now, we've talked about how I work from home, you each have a dedicated office space in your homes. Have you worked at co-working spaces? Have you tried, going out to coffee shops? What has your experience been like? Roberta, do you want to start us off here?
Sure. Yes, I have. So I have done a little bit of everything. I started my career working from an office every day, a 1 hour commute in and out. So that was pretty brutal. And then I started working from home. But at the time, although I did have a dedicated space, I used to live in a very loud place during the day. So it wasn't working out for me because silence is a big part of me being able to concentrate. Or having a quiet space. So that's when I started hunting for co-working spaces, and they work pretty well for that. To me, what kind of killed them afterwards was just the need to commute, right? I think there's nothing personally more comfortable than being able to wake up, walk the dog, come back, and boom, I'm already at work. So I don't need to leave or go into traffic or anything like that. But my wife, for example, has a completely different experience. She needs people around her to get into a focus and working mood, right? She needs to be able to get up, go get, I don't know, buy the water cooler or something and have some chit chatting. I think everybody has to find their own preferences and experiment a little bit with everything to figure out what is it that they love. Co-working spaces have the added benefit that you get to decide whether or not you would like to be isolated in a room in a co-working place and do that silence, quiet space thingy, or if you want to be sharing desk with people or be in an open space or something. So it makes it easier for folks to experiment, I guess. So yeah, I think it would be my second favorite if I had to choose, right? If I would no longer work from home, but it's definitely something that I would encourage folks to experiment with. Stack Overflow has reimburses us if we do wanted to work from co-working space, which is also something that allows us to do that experimentation. But for me, at least, it didn't add too much, given that I do have the privilege of having a dedicated quiet space at my home, and I also have access to really good fast internet, which is the other thing that co-working spaces usually offer.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't. It's one of those things you kind of don't. At least for me, I don't really think about it at this point. You know, it's kind of like a given that like, oh yeah, like the library has Wi-Fi. So I think that is something definitely to think about. Val is also saying, I'm going to go to work at the library for a bit later today. I do the same thing. You're guaranteed quiet. My library is like two blocks away, has like dedicated little like study carrel kind of things. So not great for meetings necessarily, where like I have to host an event or something like this, but very, very nice if I'm trying to kind of go heads down and not get distracted by, oh, maybe I'll just have one more muffin, or like, no, I need a refill on my latte. Like, let's just do that. So I love that idea. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more in depth. Kenzi, you had mentioned, you have ADHD, there's neurodiversity at play. That is one of my absolutely favorite topics to talk about. So let's talk about how to either support team members in your group, that are trying to protect their mental health or trying to, do some work there, or how you handle it yourself. I know for me, it was about, like y'all have said, blocking off time. So like when I have a therapy appointment, I block off the time. I fake a commute to it as well, even though we're still doing telehealth. So that's something that like helps me to make sure that I am not only protecting my mental health, but like letting other people know that it is a priority for me. Kenzi, how do you do this? Either with yourself for your neurodiverse issues or, the needs of your team?
Yeah, as similar to the tips that you kind of just alluded to, I'm very transparent. I mean, I've mentioned it probably like 5 times since we've been on the call, and I'm transparent with my team because I want them to know that mental health is health, and I think that's the culture that we have here at Stack Overflow. I also realize that there are several, I mean, not just several, there's tons, hundreds and hundreds of different flavors of mental health and different challenges that come about with that. And I realized that though I live with a couple different flavors of what that looks like, I might not know what your experience has been. And so being empathetic in that way and being transparent in my own journey and how that's impacted me in my career, I found it's been really helpful for my team to feel more comfortable in talking to me, or if they just need a mental health day, they can take a mental health day. And so it's really important to create that space and make individuals on your team feel as comfortable as possible to talk about those things, whether that's in a one-on-one setting, whether that's in a group setting. And also we have a ton of great resources here at Stack. I know a lot of other companies have ERG groups or resource groups specifically for neurodivergence, LGBTQ+, and various different groups. So we have a MIND group that is mental illness and neurodiversity is what it stands for. And so if a rep doesn't feel comfortable talking to me about something, I encourage them to join that group and also join some of those events. And so I would say that utilizing the resources around us and also my own personal experience has been helpful with that.
Love it. All right, Roberta, how about you? Is there anything that you recommend, either if you are trying to support other team members, with their mental health, or even just trying to support yourself or show others how they can support you?
I think it comes down to being a very empathetic leader and understanding that people need time and space. Because as Kenzi put it, it's a health issue. It's a health concern, and it's not something that people are making up or exaggerating, right? I do manage people who are also neurodiverse and struggle with mental diseases. What I try to do, and that's not just me, that's culturally what Stack Overflow also encourages managers to do, is to ensure that they have all the time they need to take care of themselves. We have unlimited sick days. So if you need to take the day because you had a rough therapy session, or you're anticipating that you're going to have a rough therapy session tomorrow, you want to take that day up front, no questions asked. It's my policy, right? Take the time you need to take care of yourself, and even take care of your loved ones, because that's also another and not something else that also comes up every now and then. Yeah, I guess it all comes down to, before being managers and before being co-workers, we're all humans, and we need to relate and empathize with everybody's struggles and make sure that we're there to support them, because we need them to be on their best selves to do their best work.
Yeah, of course. We got a lot of people with questions about, how to evaluate if an employer is willing to be kind to those with neurodivergence. I know how I've handled this, and it's much the same as Kenzi. I am incredibly transparent about it, and getting people's reactions. It's not like I'm setting up a test necessarily, but if I'm willing to put myself out there and be kind of transparent or vulnerable, how that's received tells me a lot about the person or a lot about the company culture. Kenzi, how have you seen this work or backfire when people are trying to assess whether or not their employer is going to prioritize this as much as they want to?
This is going to sound really blunt, and it's intentional. Do they put their money where their mouth is? Or talk is very cheap? Do they talk about how they value your mental health? Or do they actually give you unlimited sick days that you can utilize for mental health days? Do they talk about, how they want to give you free pizza once a month? Or do they actually create employee resource groups and also give you 100% free healthcare that includes being able to get in touch with a therapist virtually, in person? Those types of actions. What actions are you seeing in their benefits package that relate to what you need as far as support goes as an employee? I would not take lip service anymore. There are way too many companies. Yeah, to Val's point, no more performative benefits. There's way too many companies out there that are doing this the right way, to work for a company that is doing it the wrong way, and to just be talking about how they care. Let them show you how they care. It's incredibly important.
I love that. Yeah, you got to ask these questions. Even if the answer is no, at least you have more information than you did before. But if enough people are asking these questions and then not taking jobs or not going through the process to join that company, that's something the HR teams should recognize. That's something that they should be tracking, is like, what kind of questions are people asking? What kind of benefits or resources do they ask about that we don't offer? That is something really, really excellent to know. Roberta, how about you? Go ahead, Kenzi, please.
I was just going to say just one more example of this. I actually experienced this when I left Stack. So I left in 2020 and I went to 3 other companies in between. And when I was at those companies, this isn't directly tied to, mental health benefits, but I didn't realize how incredible the maternity and paternity leave was at Stack Overflow until I left. And I went to a company where they gave you the minimum 4 weeks of maternity leave. And that made me realize, as a woman, that they didn't even really actually value me as an employee, because they just expected me to work from home right afterwards. So those are the types of actions that I'm talking about that weren't aligned with what I needed for my future, and weren't aligned with what they were telling me and how much they cared about me as an employee. And so I think that it's really important to look at those factors.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, that's a very good thing to think on. Roberta, how about you?
Yeah, I also like in our case, right, because we are managers, like leading by example is super important. I remember this, as Kenzi was talking, I remembered earlier this year when we were trying to get pregnant, my partner and I, and it was a struggle, and it didn't always work the way we wanted to. This is a process that has been going on for a while. And I realized that I was struggling with work a lot, right? Like I was struggling to focus, to concentrate. I had to drop out of calls or leave for doctor appointments in the middle of the day. And I was struggling with it because I wasn't sharing that I was going through it with my teams, right? I was trying not to share it and just do my job without having to get nobody worried about me or anything. And that was absolutely the wrong thing to do, right? The best thing that I could have done and that I did after I realized how much it would help is to feel comfortable being vulnerable with your team as well, right? With your reports as well. As Kenzi was saying, that she's very open and transparent about her own neurodiversity. In my case, it was all about getting comfortable, sharing with the team, look, I am going to drop some balls this week, and I apologize in advance. But if we can postpone some of those meetings or some of those deadlines, that will be ideal for me because I am going through this situation right now. And it's incredible when you allow yourself to be vulnerable like this, with how empathetic the response can be and how empowered you feel afterwards, because you actually notice that nobody's going to be upset at me, like everybody is going to understand and empathize and try to help me even in any way they can, right? Like I got pizza delivered at my place because a coworker felt like it would be a nice thing for me not to worry about dinner that day because I was having a hard day. So it's the kind of things that only when you share and you feel comfortable sharing, right, and being vulnerable, regardless of whether you were a team member, an individual contributor, or a manager, and that make the whole situation go to a much better place and create a bond between you and your teammates as well.
Oh, love this. Yes, I think that's really great. I'm loving the suggestions, and I like the examples, how your team has come up to support you. I think that's absolutely wonderful. All right, so we have 4 minutes left in today's session. It always goes way too quickly, but I wanted to make sure we held a little bit of time at the end so that we could talk some more about Stack Overflow. So one of the things that y'all shared with us was, things you love about the company culture. I want to talk about your favorite part about working at Stack Overflow. So if you're looking at the screen in front of you, you should see those answers that Roberta and Kenzi provided to us. But let's talk about what that knowledge sharing looks like at Stack Overflow that y'all mentioned. Kenzi, do you want to kick off here?
Yes, I am happy to state that I feel as though when I walk into a meeting, I am one of the least smart people in the room. And that is selfish of me to even say that, but it really is a testament to the profile and the type of individuals that we hire. And it creates an environment where we're constantly accelerating and innovating. And so that for me is really motivating. And having that external factor for motivation is really helpful on those days where I'm intrinsically not feeling it. It's helpful to have that kind of culture.
I like that. Roberta, how about you? What's what does this best part about working at Stack Overflow? What do you think that really does for you? How does that make your day easier?
Well, I love it that we are in the business of knowledge sharing, right? Stack Overflow is a knowledge sharing platform that is big enough to touch all corners of the world and the entire development community, which is something that makes me really proud. And we bring this home, this principle of ensuring everybody has all the information they need to do their job. So we actually have our own internal instance of Stack Overflow, our teams, where employees and coworkers and team members can ask questions to each other, but also that is also emphasized with our default public kind of principle, right? So every time that I have a question that I want to ask a coworker, instead of sending them a direct message in private, I ask it in a public venue where if more people have the same questions, they can benefit from the answer as well. But also, just if more people want to get involved in the discussion, they can just join up and they're not prevented from doing so because of our technology way communication works.
Yes. Ooh, I think that's completely, super important information for people to know. All right, let's talk about your top tips for someone who's interviewing. Are these Stack Overflow specific, or are these something that y'all, came up with based on, interviewing at any org? I'm really interested, especially in the asking questions. Roberta, what are some questions that you suggest people ask in these interviews? Maybe there's questions that you always made sure that you asked when you were interviewing with companies.
I think it's extremely important that you do your own research in a company that you're interviewing for. And that's where ask questions comes from, right? Especially around things that matter to us, like Kenzi was mentioning as well. What's the parental leave policy? What's your on-call rotation policies? And how do people work together? This is super important for yourself, because when you are interviewing, it's a two-way street, right? It's not just about the company deciding whether or not you're a good fit. It's about you deciding whether or not that company is a good fit for yourself as well. So a lot of things are not written down anywhere, especially things that are important to you, right? In my case, for example, I might want to know more about parental leave and this sort of things. So, and it's also super important for the company to know that you are interested in the company and what the company does. Having questions, good questions to ask in the end of your interviewing process is super important for relaying interest, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you. All right, we are at time, so I do want to make sure that we end on time, respect everybody's calendars. But I just want to say, Roberta and Kenzi, thank you both for taking the time to spend with us today. It has been wonderful to spend the afternoon with you. I learned a ton, which is excellent, because I now have some great tips to help make my remote work life maybe work a little bit better for me. But I also want to say a big thank you to our audience. Y'all have been fabulous throughout this whole event. Great participation in the chat. I'm loving seeing so many of y'all interacting and connecting with each other. And the questions that y'all submitted were just like on point, y'all. I'm so sorry we weren't able to get to all of them. But we're so happy to have had you join us today, whether this was your first Power to Fly event or your 100th. We are always so happy to see you join us. So thank you so much. I hope y'all have a safe, happy, and healthy rest of your day. And we will hopefully see you back here soon for some more great Power to Fly virtual events. Bye, y'all.